Let's talk about a true backyard hero, an animal that's completely woven into the fabric of rural life in the Philippines, the native chicken. But this isn't just a story about tradition. It's really about how modern science is helping this incredibly tough bird build a much more profitable future for thousands of families.
To really get why this matters so much, you just need to know one thing, and this might surprise you. Over half of all chickens in the Philippines are raised in small, backyard flocks. We're not talking about those giant commercial farms. We're talking about a few birds just scratching around behind someone's house. I mean, this is agriculture on the most personal scale you can imagine. And for those families, these chickens are way more than just a source of food. Think of them as a living, breathing bank account. Their safety net. If there's an emergency, or if you need to pay for your kids' school fees, you can sell a chicken. They are an absolutely vital piece of the household economy.
All right, so to really understand this system, researchers zoomed in on one specific area, the Ilocos region up in the northern Philippines. Let's take a closer look at what backyard farming actually looks like on the ground there. So the Ilocos region is this strip of land on the northwestern coast of Luzon. The research we're pulling from surveyed farmers all across its 4 provinces, from Ilocos Norte all the way down to Pangasinan, to get a really clear picture of how they raise their native chickens.
What's really remarkable is just how low-tech and self-sufficient the whole traditional system is. I mean, the birds are often raised in what you might call basic conditions. A lot of them don't have any special housing, they just find a place to roost. There's no complex management plan or selective breeding going on. They survive almost entirely by fending for themselves. And a huge part of fending for themselves, of course, comes down to what they eat. And this brings us right to the heart of the traditional method, and also its biggest challenge, a scavenger's diet.
So the big question is, what are they actually eating? If there's no real feeding plan, how do these chickens get through the day? Well, farmers do give them some food. The top 3 things are corn grits, pale, which is just unhusked rice, and of course, kitchen scraps. You see the pattern here, right? It's a diet based completely on whatever is cheap, available, and left over from everything else happening on the farm. But that's only half the story. The rest of their diet comes from foraging, and they eat some really interesting local plants. Things like spiny amaranth, the sensitive makia hair or touch-me-not plant, and a bunch of different local grasses. This knack for finding their own food is the real secret to their survival. Okay, so we've got this incredibly tough bird that costs almost nothing to raise. That sounds perfect, doesn't it? Well, not quite. This brings us to the core problem. Being resilient, it turns out, is not the same thing as being profitable. When you put the traditional native chicken side by side with a modern commercial broiler, the differences are just stark. One is low input and tough enough for pretty much any condition, but it's slow and its output is low. The other is a high-input machine that needs a very controlled environment, but it is incredibly efficient. And here's the heart of the issue. A typical native hen, just left to do her own thing, will only lay about 10 to 15 eggs per clutch, maybe 3 or 4 times a year. So, bottom line, we're looking at maybe 30 to 60 eggs per year total. That's a tiny, tiny fraction of what a commercial hen can produce. So there's the trade-off, summed up perfectly. These birds are amazing survivors, for sure, but their natural productivity is just too low to create a reliable and predictable income for the families who really depend on them. And this is where our story takes a really cool turn. Recognizing this gap between being resilient and being profitable, the Philippine government launched a science and technology program to see if they could improve the native chicken, but without losing what makes it so special in the first place. This was the big question, right? What if you could take all that natural toughness of the native chicken and just give it a little scientific boost? What if you could blend that deep tradition with just enough innovation to make a real, tangible difference?
So the program had a 4-part plan. First, develop stable, true-to-type breeds, basically chickens that would reliably pass on their best traits. Second, create clear instructions for how to raise them. Third, systematically improve their performance. And finally, the most important goal of all, make native chicken farming more profitable for rural families.
And the results were pretty amazing. After years of research in selective breeding, scientists developed 4 improved strains, each one named for the region it came from. So you've got the Darek from Panay, the Camarans from Bicol, the Boholano, and the Zampen. These are still native chickens, just, optimized. So the huge question is, did it actually work? Let's look at the real-world impact that these new breeds and farming methods have had on the ground. The results are just fantastic. Where a traditional hen might give you about 20 slaughter-ready chickens per year through her chicks, the improved strains can produce 55. And just look at the egg production. It leaps from that 30 to 60 range all the way up to 120 eggs per year. It's a huge difference.
Let's just sit with that number for a second. 120 eggs. For a small family, that is a 2 to 4 times increase. It completely changes the economics. It turns a handful of eggs now and then into a consistent, reliable product.
And it is the exact same story for meat production. 55 chickens ready for market per hen per year. This takes backyard chicken farming from being a small side hustle or a bit of extra insurance to something that can generate a much more significant and steady income. And that's really the bottom line, isn't it? The science isn't just stuck in a lab. It's creating a more predictable, more reliable, and more profitable business for the very people who have been raising these chickens for generations.
So what we really have here is a story about an evolving flock. It's about not throwing away tradition, but building on top of it. It's a perfect example of blending that old-world toughness with the precision of new-world science.
And that leaves us with a bigger question. The Filipino native chicken is just one example. It really makes you wonder, what other traditional farming practices around the world are just waiting for a scientific partnership to unlock their full potential and help us build a more sustainable food future?